Criminal Justice Committee to order. Entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting. Matt, Fred, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Before we start, I have a little something I want to discuss. There's a rumor going around, Mr. Uzzi, that you've invited some county employees to the Yankee game.
I can't confirm nor deny.
Well, that's the rumor, and I just wanted to point out to you that one of the most rabid Yankee fans, and I mean rabid, is Justice Krogman, and I'm sure if he finds out you're giving free rides to people to the Yankee game, he's going to be upset. As well as the chairman of your committee, who is not rabid, but certainly an ardent fan. So, just a little word of warning here.
Keep that in mind.
Okay.
Dennis is foaming, but he's not rabid.
Yeah. All right, that said, let's move on. We're going to start with public defender.
I've got a simple part. Mrs. Flores has the main event. It's just a single resolution, and it is following up on stipends from a grant that was previously approved by the board. And this is just to get the authorization to put the money into the budget and use it.
Thank you. He's here.
Oh, thank you. I'll bring it back. It's not going to be until Friday, but I'll see what I need. A little light reading, huh?
Can I get everybody? This is very straightforward. This is just referring to the grant that I came to you about 2 or 3 months ago. This is the one that was put together primarily by Mr. Dusick. And Mrs. Flores and I really didn't know it was in effect until it came out as a contract. And it was just stipends for some of the salaries from one of the oils grants. The money is now has been voted through the contracts and events, so we're just looking to get the permission to go and implement this.
These, you got 3,600 per year for 3 years, and then when the grant expires,
It expires as well.
done as well. Okay. Does anybody have a question? You want to move it, Bill? Second? Ron? Any further discussion or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried.
Thank you, that's it for me.
Thank you.
The first, no, it's okay, I'll do it because I had it organized. The first handout I'm giving deals with the information Gretchen gave out last time. I didn't know if anybody brought it with them, so I brought another copy for everyone.
That was a good move.
Just trying to be prepared.
Let the record show Supervisor Seaver is here late.
Thank you.
4 minutes.
We could have shared. It's the same thing.
Thank you.
Okay, that's the first sheet. The second sheet that I'm going to hand out is stapled together, and that's the materials that was attached to the agenda. In case anybody needed it, I wasn't sure. I think I was grabbing 2 here. Feels like it's 2. Thank you.
Morning, Paul.
Okay. For those who don't know me, I'm Marcy Flores. I'm the first assistant. Last time when the meeting was in session, Supervisor Monroe requested a case study in terms of volume of the caseload for the Public Defender's Office. So if you go to the stapled agenda and you go to the first page, that should be, the caseload analysis. Now, it's the third page in, sorry. The caseload analysis is based on the counties that Gretchen told. So then you go to the single handout. What I have referred to is Essex County, which is number 4. In Gretchen's sheet, the number of full-time public defenders, they are people who work in the Public Defender's Office, is not correct. It is 2, not 5. If you go down to number 15, under Washington County, the salary for the PD there is $81,068, and there's only 1 full-time employee, not 3. If you go down to number 16, which is Livingston County, the salary for the PD is $96,000, and so that number is incorrect. If you go down to Warren County, we only have 6 attorneys, not 7, that was number 17. If you go down to number 18, Cattaraugus County, the salary for the PD is $95,758, and they only have 7 full-time employees. If you go down to number 26, which is Schenectady County, that one jumped out at me. I knew they didn't have 22 attorneys full-time. They have 8, and the PD makes $121. And then number 29 is Saratoga County. The PD makes $124,306, and it didn't say the number of full-time attorneys. It is 7. In my analysis, getting back to the stapled section, I have picked 6 counties because those are the ones that really are relevant for us. Livingston and Cattaraugus, because they're on top of us and below us on Gretchen's analysis, and then the counties that we deal with all the time here, which is Saratoga, Warren, Washington, and Essex. Okay, so when you look at the caseloads, Livingston County has 1,538 cases. The reason this is 2013, I contacted New York State. Each year we have to submit a form called USC 195. We submitted in March. I submitted it as we're supposed to. I asked for the figures for this past year. They will not release them to me. They have not finished analyzing it. So I said, well, what year can you release for me? So they gave me 2013, so that's why the analysis on this page is 2013, because I got it from the state, and those are the figures that are submitted. And OILS, Office of Indigent Legal Services, relies on these statistics also, so that's why I chose those figures. So if you go down to Livingston County, they have 23% more open cases than we do, and in terms of their caseload. If you go to Saratoga, they have 34% more cases than we do, and that's obviously because of SPAC in the summer and the track and the great input of people into the Saratoga during that time period. Essex County has 54% less cases than we do, and Cattaraugus has 2.5 times more than us. Now, I was concerned about that. Why do they have so many more, and our size of our counties are very similar? And that's because they have 34 town courts. Their biggest court is Allegheny, which is considered a city for them. We only have 12 courts, so they must have a great deal more police populations, little police departments, and that's why their numbers are so much higher than ours, because they have 34 town courts and we do not. So our population size is similar, but they have a lot more police departments than we do. And then Washington County has 15% less cases than we do. So, Mr. Monroe, this was the information that you wanted, and I hope that assists you in terms of that. Do you have any questions for me about those types of things, or anybody else?
Cattaraugus, 1,967 in family court too. That's
Yeah, they have
the highest, by far the highest number.
Yeah, they have one more family court judge than we have. Okay. Then the next issue in terms of caseload analysis was that the committee wanted information about salary comparison. So what I have done is called each public defender's office that I just talked about that Gretchen used and put it on a chart for us. It talks about Essex, Saratoga, Livingston, Washington, Cattaraugus, etc. So that gives you the salary. I had contacted them for and found out how many people are full-time, how many people are part-time, Cattaraugus gets oils money. Now, we get oils money. That was the issue you just dealt with Mr. Wackett, that you approved, because oils is Office of Indigent Legal Services. It is a grant money that is only just for as long as the grant is in existence, which in our case is for 3 years, and then the money is distributed pursuant to that grant. And Cattaraugus gets that money also. And that is the only county that gets oils grant money out of this grouping. So I wanted you to see the salaries compared to the other counties, full-time versus part-time. As you all know, we are required to, the first assistant and the PD are required to live in Warren County. That's one of the requirements. So then what I did next is attach the public defender's salary and the DA's salary since 2007 as a comparison. If you look at the DA's salary, I put a note at the bottom, which is first assistant gets a grant stipend, and I did not include that in his salary because I assume it's from Stop DWI money, and if that money stops for any reason, then obviously he would not get that stipend. But I wanted you to see the comparison in terms of salaries between the two. Our salaries are not on the same level. Now, what I did to try to make it easier is the page after that is the 2015 salary comparison for the DA's office and the PD's office. And the last thing is the dollar amount difference between the two. So, my proposal obviously would be that I would request that this committee appoint me to continue on as the public defender. In terms of my qualifications, I don't know if people know my qualifications or not, so I'm going to make it really quick. In 1983, I was admitted to the bar, and I worked in the Suffolk County DA's office, which is on Long Island, the second half of the island. I was there for 11 years. While I was there, I was in the Rackets Bureau and the Forfeiture Bureau. I handled organized crime and white-collar crime and civil forfeitures. When funds are taken and used to buy houses, both cars and cash, that money is seized and given back to the county and to law enforcement. Thereafter, I was promoted to the Deputy Bureau Chief of the District Court Bureau. District Court Bureau is 13 judges sitting full-time, 6 part-time judges, and District Court Bureau handles misdemeanors and violations. I supervised 46 secretaries, 36 attorneys, 10 detectives, 4 crime victim advocates, 2 had to be bilingual. The caseload was 140,000 cases of misdemeanors and violations a year. So I'm fairly good at management and dealing with all these kinds of issues. Then I went here, my husband was promoted in state police. We had to live within 75 miles of Albany. So we moved to Warrensburg, lovely place, love it. And so in terms of also when I was in Suffolk DA's office, I co-authored a book. When I was in Suffolk, there was no such thing as computerization for DA's office and for the police. There was a case that came out, People versus Alhambra, and a lot of accusatory instruments, which are the paperwork that gets you into court, were being dismissed because they were not legally sufficient. So I helped co-author the book for police so that they could write them so we didn't have this problem. I sat on the committee which created the DWI's Bill of Particulars Supporting Deposition. That document is still used in every DWI case in New York State. I also was on the committee to computerize the DA's office, which was the precursor for the TCMS program, and that was all through DCJS. So then we move up here. I worked part-time in this DA's office as a coordinating assistant district attorney for Sterling for 8 years. I was the appeals bureau, and my position was a part-time position, 3/4 time. It no longer exists. Then Sterling and I became partners up in North Creek, and then we did the RFP for the public defender's office. So I was in from ground zero on the PD's office, which we did not have. One of the things Gretchen was talking about when she discussed the paperwork she gave to me was in terms of plan of succession and management and how things are done. The PD's office is a little different than some other agencies. John and I, and Sterling and I, were always hands-on in terms of what's going on. No decision was made unless we discussed it and we knew what was going on. Not all offices are run that way. So I can tell you that when we have the oils grants, I have been involved in that all the way through. I have been in the Court of Appeals, and I'll be in the Court of Appeals again next week on another matter. That's the highest court in New York State. So in terms of doing things, I'm hands-on, just as John is hands-on, and we always know what's going on. And so in case you didn't know any of my background, now you have a real short thing. Oh, the other thing I think is important to know is, so I know the position from a prosecutor, I know the position from a defense attorney. I also know the position from a victim. I was kidnapped at gunpoint while I was in law school. And the police department there, unlike our police department, messed up the paperwork and they released the defendants. The paperwork was ROR. So 10 years later, they eventually caught the people and they did substantial incarceration. I also know the system through a victim tangentially. When I was in law school, mostly law students in the complex I lived in were students, a boyfriend, girlfriend, he killed her, set the bed on fire to cover up the murder. The arson took out the complex, so I came out with my car keys and the clothes on my back. So I understand in terms of things that victims go through. So I think it's a different perspective than some other people may have. So I just thought you should know that I understand all perspectives, so that when you're talking with victims and you're defending a client, you have to be sensitive to everything that's going on, and I think that's important to know. Kate Hogan and I have been working on some changes and some proactive ideas to come up in the next year to save the county money. We are in negotiations and discussions with the courts to make sure they will approve these things that will save money. They have not been approved yet, so I don't want to go into details in case they fall through. But we always are trying to, my office and the DA's office, trying to work together. We are not as antagonistic. I understand we represent different interests, but we do try to move the system through in an expeditious manner, allowing justice for my clients. In terms of salary, one of the issues came up is, what would my salary be if I was a PD? Well, I would like the same salary that Mr. Wofford had. I feel my qualifications are sufficient. I feel that my ability to handle caseloads, I can handle any case that occurs in this court and in this county. And what I would like to do, though, is when I was offered a job recently, a little while ago, and I was going to leave the county. Because it was a salary issue, I have to, be concerned about my ability to provide for my family in the future. And the county discussed with me staying. They could not meet the salary that I was offered before, but they made me a compromise salary, which was $80,000, and I took that. And because I knew that I didn't really want to leave the county, I wanted to be the PD when Mr. Wofford was gone, and I thought that was an appropriate thing. I know that salary position was offered for me because of my qualifications and my ability to do work. What I had come up on the last page is a proposal for how I would like to structure the salary. I would like to adjust the person's salary down a little, to get him where I was before, and I would like to take the difference of my $80,000 salary to that other salary and apportion it to the other attorneys in my office. The reason that's important, the DA's office makes substantially more than we do. I would like to keep the quality people we have working for us. They've been working for us for years, and I think that would be an important way to restructure. So that would be my proposal in terms of restructuring. In addition, in terms of the oils money for attorney retention, which you had voted on, if you look at what you had voted on, the first assistant was not included in that salary. The reason being because Mr. Wofford was still working at that time when that was done. His date of retirement was not set in stone at that point, and because I got a pay raise, we felt that it would not be appropriate for me to take that money. So what I would like to propose is the money that the PD would be getting, which is $36. I would like to give 2/3 of it to the first assistant, and I would like to keep 1/3. But again, that also would have to be approved by oils. I don't see that as a problem. I feel that the money is for attorney retention to keep good people, and I think that's important. I know some discussions have been, well, why do these other counties make more than we do? That's a decision by their boards and how they want to do it. I think that we have quality attorneys here working here. I think we have a caseload that we handle well, and I think that we are not in the litigation issues that other counties are in, such as Washington County with the Harold Herring case, where they're not complying with the statute. One of the things Kate and I are trying to do, that case law indicates you have to have an attorney at arraignment. We try to cover arraignments whenever we are notified by a court. We get phone calls at different times, day and night, and we cover arraignments. We have a salaried position on hold in the PD's office that we've gotten through grant money to pay for an attorney at arraignment, but because we don't have a standard time frame set up when these arraignments are going to be occurring, we have held off on hiring that person and holding the grant money aside until we get that. And that's part of the piece that Ms. Hogan and the courts and I have been working on. We've been working with Judge Hobbs before he got on the bench right at the beginning to discuss these issues, because he is the supervising judge for all the attorneys in this county. So we're trying to come up with proactive things to make things work and be cost effective for this county. So my position would be that I respectfully request that you would appoint me as PD in a line of succession, and that the salary remain the same. I'm open to questions. I know I went fast, but I know you have other things on your agenda. I can go way faster than that also.
Mercy, Marcy.
So, but I know you have a lot of, stuff on your agenda, and you have all the documentation, and you had it from last week, so I figured you had looked at it.
Well, we certainly, that was entertaining.
That was entertaining.
Your resume sounds like a pilot for a full-length movie.
Yeah, could be.
And you certainly covered it in a rapid manner. I'm gonna tell you, I had trouble keeping up with you.
I'm
So
sorry.
if you can do it faster, I'd appreciate it if you didn't.
I promise in future meetings, if I'm appointed, I'll go slower. But there's a lot of material that you already got in here, so I
Yes.
just was explaining where it came from.
Yes, yes, yes. You did a great job.
Anybody?
We all appreciate it. Anybody have any questions?
Yeah.
Fred?
Well, I just don't follow you on, you said you were taking some money from someplace to adjust
I
the-
didn't put it in there because it's the oils money. It's the
Oh.
3,600 per attorney that you just voted on,
Okay, so you're saying instead of you taking
Yeah.
your share, you're
I
gonna,
want
you
to
wanna
share-
apportion it to
yeah.
the other assistants?
I would like to apportion it to
Okay.
the first assistant because he was, the first assistant position was specifically excluded from that oils money because the funding, when we submitted it, was based on what I had gotten, and I don't think that's fair. And I try to be fair.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm more just curious, what law school did you go to where all these things
I
happen?
went to Emory in Atlanta, Georgia. I would not recommend
Yeah.
living, and it wasn't in,
Right.
it was in the suburbs. That's the worst part. This is all in the suburbs.
That's right, that's right.
Because I don't go to bad stuff.
Rachel?
First, I appreciate the corrected information and the updated documents. Secondly, whatever coffee you drink, I'm going to.
I don't drink coffee. I'm not allowed to have caffeine.
And, lastly, so this, I guess I'd wanna see an updated, proposal for the restructuring of the salaries to include the oil money, because that, I'm not following you. Maybe
Okay, no problem.
you
The
could-
oils money is not included in because it's grant money, and it's not, this schedule is salary money that the county provides, okay? So I just took our budget and I took the difference between what I used to make versus what I make now, and then I apportioned it, and there's like $250 that will be a give back to the county, because I wanted to make the number fair all the way through. So the oils money would never be included in the salary information because it's a grant. It is separate and distinct and would not be, it's not salary that the county is paying.
I think we do that though with other positions. I thought we were gonna try to get away from the stipend idea and
Because the way oils is, they want it done that way. So
they're requiring it done as
Yes.
a stipend.
yes. So that's why it's not included in the budget, and that's why I'm telling you about it, because I don't want to surprise anybody with anything. I want everyone to know exactly what's going on.
Any other questions? Anybody wanna move the motion to, hire Marcy before she?
I will.
Fred, second by Bill. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, the only thing I've ever tried to teach Marcy is this. This is called a period. It comes at the end of the sentence and allows for a breath.
And it doesn't happen.
No. No. That was most entertaining.
When did we, Dennis,
Robert, you're up. Yes.
did we just vote on salary or just to appoint her and then at
To-
a different time we talk about the salaries for the positions, or what did we just do?
That's a little late for that question, Rachel.
Well, the resolution wasn't specific, it just said to appoint, so, Mr.
I'm
Chairman, maybe you
assuming
can
that's your
clarify.
salary as well. She discussed what
I
she,
understand.
With this,
Yeah.
as it also relates to the assistant public defenders?
the oils money, yes. The only thing she doesn't have in the paperwork she gave you is the 3,600 that she would get in that oils money that she wants to give to the first assistant, because they were omitted from that list.
And
That's
the
it.
money, where's Frank? The money's in the budget? For the, so she's just gonna replace that John's salary and then the assistant public defenders, because she's breaking down the difference of her salary, all of that's in the budget, so it's not an increase anywhere in the budget.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
On to that resolution, Fred.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry. I got up to speed.
Morning. I just have a few things. I have a couple resolution requests. The first one is to amend the county budget to accept $2,500 from the Warren Washington Victim Impact Panel. What we're doing is we run what's called an addictive thinking group in our department, where we deal with high-level DWI offenders in our department, mostly in drug court, and other DWI offenders that have had some issues. We've run the group for about 10 years, probably run 4 or 5 a year. They're 5-week sessions, and in that we probably have 10 or so DWI individuals. The group is co-facilitated by an individual named Joe Lashway, who's a certified alcohol and substance abuse counselor, and a couple members of our department. Joe had previously worked for Conifer Park, and as a part of that, they paid for him to do the addictive thinking group. Conifer Park is no longer employing Joe, and we thought it was certainly a program we would like to continue. I reached out to the Victim Impact Panel, put a proposal together, and they gave us $2,500 to continue it for the rest of the year. So I'd like to amend our budget to accept that money and then pay it out to Joe as a consultant. I talked to Rob Lynch. We have the code set up. It's a valuable thing, and I'd like to continue it.
Great. Bill?
Move it.
Move it. Ron, second. Any discussion, questions? In favor? Opposed? Motion's carried.
The next resolution request is to extend a contract with with GovPayNet. GovPayNet is a company that accepts credit card transactions for restitution and probation fees. How it works is GovPay facilitates a credit card transition from a probationer if they decide to pay the restitution via credit card. There's no cost to the county. There's a 3% surcharge given to the probationer should they use the credit card transaction. We probably use it about once a month. It doesn't happen very often, but what it does is it gives the option for an individual to pay using the credit card, and obviously helps victims of crimes that we take restitution in. So it's another option. I think the contract we had last time was a series of 5-year contracts, no cost to the county. The contract is up. I'd like to continue that.
Ron? Make that motion. Fred, second. Any questions? Discussion? Being none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Next resolution request is permission to attend the New York State Council of Probation Administrators Summer Conference in Lake Placid. The cost is covered by our dues, so there's no additional cost.
Fred? Matt? Any questions? Discussion? Being none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Last thing is just to update the committee on the raise the age of criminality to 16 and 17 years old. I've spent quite a bit of time this year talking about it, as most of you know that it wasn't included in the governor's budget, partially because it's a pretty complex issue, and there's a lot of things that need to be worked out, so it wasn't able to be done. It's my understanding that the Senate's really not for it. There's different groups that have come out in opposition. But nevertheless, it is the belief that the governor is going to resubmit the bill, and it is believed that it will pass at some point this year. But I think the thinking is everybody would be very surprised should it not. We've met with NISAC and put some information together, and what NISAC wants to do is to get the county entities that are involved, probation, social services, county attorney, sheriff, and all those people together and have a meeting with the governor's council so we can get our points across in terms of what it means to us, and we can have important pieces of legislation in it. An important note is that $25 million was allocated for raise the age in the governor's budget. That's for the planning. That figure was given to us by the governor's office, so that's consistent. So the governor has allocated funds for the planning phase, which would tend to indicate that this is going to happen. I will keep everybody updated as it goes. The bill's pretty complex. Our hope is that it's narrowed down and it simply addresses the needs of the 16 and 17-year-olds. And the previous bill talks about PINs, and talks about a multitude of other things that they're trying to incorporate. It's pretty complex, involves a lot of systems, involves a lot of people, and I think they're, you know, trying to get it so it obviously works in some type of logical way, which would be interesting in New York, but we'll see how that goes. Any questions?
Okay, anybody have any questions? Fred?
I mean, is it the position in the probation department still the same, that we support it as long as the state provides the money?
Correct. And the governor and his people have come out in numerous places and indicate that they're going to pay 100%. We'll see if all that happens, but they've indicated in the numerous places.
Rachel, do you have a question?
Well, pretty much you just acid, at NISAC, we heard that the Public Defenders Association along with the DA's Association had opposed it or had some concerns, and they didn't mention the Probation Association, so I didn't know if you could shed a little light on that.
No, we were consistent. We've spent a lot of time, again, we were in favor of it if it was completely funded. Dealing with 16 and 17-year-olds, the thinking is it's better dealt in a family court setting as opposed to a criminal setting. Our thinking is we'll make it work, but we need the funding. Probation has not been funded fully through the years. We're about 11% on the dollar. So we need complete funding. It'll bring additional people to our department. We'll need to do various services for these youth, so we need the money to do those type of things. So if they fund it, we're for it. If they don't, then, that's something we can't take on.
Anybody else?
But if it
Jim?
wasn't in the governor's budget for this year, if they put it in place this year, there wouldn't be funding other than for the study, I think you said, right?
Right, what they did is, the bill as it reads, it's phased in, so the actual implementation wouldn't happen until 2017, when the 16 and 17-year-olds go in, and then 2018 when the 17 to 18 go in. So it's phased in, and then this year was just a planning year. I think 14 million was for the state and 11 million for the counties, including New York, so you can see how that works out,
But it sounds like that's gonna be a catch-22, that they'll pass it without us knowing whether they're gonna fund it, right? Because it's not gonna be in the governor's budget till next year, or any budget till next year.
Well, I'm assuming, yeah, it could be, and I'm assuming that when they do this bill, that they will identify how they're going to fund it. Again, that's a big thing. When we met with NISAC, we indicated that that's very important to us. So far, with the 25 million for the planning phase, that's consistent with the figures they had originally given us. And if they're looking to pass it, I'm sure that they need to put it out for a couple of years. So we're hoping that when they do the budget, when they do the bill, that they will identify the fiscal impact and outline it in terms of what the bill reads.
But we still won't know if the money is there until the 2016
Yeah,
budget.
exactly.
Jim?
Yeah, how much is this gonna cost, whether the state pays for it or not?
How much would it cost our department?
Yeah, how
Preliminary-
much of an increase?
Preliminary, well, the figures are down in terms of juvenile arrests, but initially our thinking was we would need an additional probation officer and an additional probation assistant to deal with the intake and the extra caseload. In terms of salary, that's approximately 75,000 without benefits. Then you add in services in terms of contractually having things for kids pursuant to what the legislation was, that's another couple $100,000. I think, safely say, we could be 300,000 into it. But again, the figures have been down through the years, so, we'll have to plan and see how that goes.
Right.
Yes.
How much is that gonna save the adult system? Because, the burden that 16 and 17-year-olds had on the adult system is now gonna be transferred to the juvenile system. There must be some savings in the adult system.
Yeah, I can't answer that because it would have to do with the prosecution. So the district attorney's office would handle the 16 and 17-year-olds. The public defender had represented them. The shift will be for the county attorney's office now to bring these cases into family court. So there will be, potentially less work for some and more for others, but I don't know what those figures would be.
Should be offsetting to some degree.
To some degree it would be.
Anyone else? Thank you, Robert. Enjoy the game.
Well, I have my counsel here, so you can speak now. Was an issue with the Yankee game, Mark.
Oh.
Sorry to hear that.
Is there anybody else that wants to address the committee? Anything the committee wants?
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn, second by Ron. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you very much. Great. How's the job going?
Hey, Matt, are you in this next? Good luck. So I'll see you down there.
All right, yeah, I'm on